When I was a little girl, the person I looked up to most was my big brother. I had no sisters, and besides, I thought that my brother was the coolest guy on earth. This is probably due to the fact that he was the most feared guy in the neighborhood. If anyone messed with me, all I had to do was say I was his sister, and the offending party would back away in silence, as if they had just laid eyes on Rosemary's Baby. So, like any typical adoring younger sibling, I was forever trying to tag along with my brother wherever he went. It was pretty clear that he found that annoying, but I didn't care. On one particularly hot afternoon in July, sometime in the mid-1970s, so I guess I was about 9 or 10 at the time, I ventured over to the local park, which was about a block and a half away from my house, in search of my older brother. He would often play handball at the Rath Park courts with his buddies. To my disappointment, he was nowhere to be found, so as long as I was at the park, I'd treat myself to my favorite beverage, orange drink, often known as bug juice in some parts of the country. Rath Park had a small wooden white concession stand just beyond the handball courts with a limited selection. Coffee, cold drinks, chips, maybe some Drake's cakes. And I remember how inviting the orange drink looked, bubbling like a magic potion in the translucent cooling dispenser. I remember looking down at my sweaty palm and making sure that I had enough change to buy a small styrofoam cup's worth, a quarter and a nickel, 30 cents. My eyes grew wide with anticipation as I reached up and placed my change on the white counter. I looked up at the cashier, who wore a white t-shirt, paper hat, and couldn't have been more than 16 years old, and opposite me, leaning quietly against the counter, was another man, a bit older, with a manicured mustache and a tight muscle shirt. He had been smoking a cigarette and chatting with the counter boy, and they paused when I approached with my change. "Orange drink," I said. However, instead of turning to fill my order, the counter boy's eyes focused on something over my head. When I happened to glance over at the man with the mustache, he was looking in the same direction. Then I turned around, and I saw what they saw. A tall, thin man had approached the concession stand, and he appeared to have come from the handball courts. I'll never forget his look. Sunken eyes, hideously pockmarked skin, shoulder-length, wispy, thinning blonde hair, and a chillingly menacing frown. He was probably only about 28 years old, but he looked, as a friend of mine likes to say, like he was rode hard and put away wet. As if his looks weren't unsettling enough, when he opened his mouth to speak, his voice seemed to come from the depths of the earth, or the depths of someplace else.
"Give me a coffee,"
he barked. In spite of the fact that a little girl of 10 had already ordered ahead of him, the kid behind the counter served the man coffee with shaking hands. The man picked up his cup with one shaking hand that was still cradling a cigarette. As he brought it to his lips, he turned and walked back towards the handball courts. 75 cents, the kid said. As soon as he said that, we knew we were in for it. The man slowly turned back and looked at the concession cashier.
"What?"
"It's 75 cents, man."
"Oh, yeah?"
He began to approach the counter.
"You tell them Dennis Brown took the coffee."
There was silence. Yeah, but it's still 75 cents.
"You tell them Dennis Brown took the coffee."
Okay. We were all frozen where we were.
"Who took it?"
Dennis Brown.
"That's right."
And then he continued his turn back towards the handball courts. We watched him walk away for several minutes. There was a long silence. Suddenly, the man with the mustache said, "Did he tell you I was going to pay for it?" And we all burst into laughter. Not because that was particularly funny, but because we were so grateful that he had broken the tension. I honestly can't remember if I ever got my orange drink that day, but I do remember that I ran as fast as I could back to my house a block and a half away, and who was there but my older brother. I told him what had happened, and he laughed. Oh, man. Dennis Brown. Oh, shit. He had this maniacal laugh that I'll never forget. Why? I said. Do you know Dennis Brown? He said, oh, everybody knows Dennis Brown. Even I'm scared of Dennis Brown. And he laughed and went back to grooming his hair in the mirror. I couldn't believe it. My brother afraid of someone? My brother wasn't afraid of anyone. Everyone feared him. But just the thought that there was one person that my brother was afraid of filled me full of awe. I remember sitting in my room and thinking about the entire day's events. I wondered what would happen. Would he tell his boss that Dennis Brown took the coffee? What would happen then? I imagined it in my mind. Who did you say took the coffee, son? Dennis Brown. That's all right, son. Take the rest of the day off.